no more YEET at all. Jey Uso ain't the champ no more. No more. I was like, I'm not gonna lie. Hey, look, I was like caught up on Raw. I knew about some of the stuff, but hey, that's not besides the point. Anyway, I did not see any of that coming. Not one bit. I was like, oh man, we're gonna have a cash in, like a fake one, or like some DQ situation. No, not one bit, not at all. No, they just had Jey Uso basically pass out. And I was like, you got to ask your question about, like, well, what's next? Gunther, there's reports about a Goldberg situation. I was like, Jey Uso. I was like, there's talks about if him and his brother are going to match up together. And just the whole state of the championship. So, I was like, and also his reign and of itself. So, let's just go ahead and just sort of knock some of these dominoes down. My surprise is not just that he lost the championship. I would have thought that I didn't think his reign was going to go to the SummerSlam. I didn't think his reign necessarily was going to go to, let's say, like September or something like that. No, I thought he would have a cool amount of months. Just because I was like, with the championship, when it's like, it hasn't been on who I feel like the people deem as world championship people, and by that I mean Seth and Gunther over here, and then Damian Priest and Jey over here. There's a different outlook that everybody has. Everybody, we already know what Seth Rollins does, and everybody thinks the whole world and that his shit don't stink with Gunther, and Jey Uso is the antithesis of Gunther. And we've seen with Damian Priest that is pretty much that everybody was like, they wasn't on it. Then they sort of liked it. Then he dropped it. And they were like, we don't care about him. Why is everybody seeming to not feel like he's like a top thing at the same time? But I thought that he would at least get near to maybe, especially that we got King of the Ring showing up. I'm thinking, I'm like, oh. Like him going to Saudi Arabia, I thought that would be a thing. That to see how Jey Uso is over there and get all of them yeeting from their seats, that's where I thought that maybe like that thing would end. But at the same time, as fast as this match with Gunther and on a Monday Night Raw, which I do want to give this that I do like, is the fact that this changed hands on a Raw. And I was like, I do think we need more things like that of like, it doesn't always have to be at a pay-per-view, PLE, whatever you want to talk about. I do believe that I think that is good as well. So I was like, does it suck that it had to be Uso? I guess so, but if you're going to do it to somebody that's kind of like that. So I didn't think it was going to be a long time. I thought it was going to be either he face whoever wins the King of the Ring or get close enough to that. Just because, especially with the King of the Ring, and it's like, look, I think whoever wins the King of the Ring is going to win that championship, just because I think that sort of like with the Money in the Bank, you sort of want to establish that these things are basically a guarantee. It's really about more the execution of how it happens. But to me, depending on who wins the King of the Ring, I was like, they decided to do Fatal 4-Way this year, and seeing who sort of the participants in it, I was like, I think it's probably going to end up being Cody, to be honest. But I would think that you sort of like Jey Uso is the champion, that I was like, if somebody else won it, it doesn't feel that bad. When it kind of like Gunther, he doesn't really. I was like, being him furthers his storyline and Jey thing, because I do like things that are like rivalries in WWE. So it's like Jey Uso is always going to have Gunther in some form or fashion, but I was like in his shadow. It's always going to be, and it's like they are the complete like butting heads of each other, where it's like the whole entertainment style versus direct like straight up wrestling style. I was like getting the crowd over versus being like, I don't need the crowd, I am a champion, that's where I hold myself. So I was like, I do like that as a thing, and I don't mind. I was like, I don't mind that it's like one that is Gunther, but I was like, with Jey Uso as a champion, I do think that to me that fits a little bit differently with the Rollins whole thing about it. And I do also think that if you wanted to say, for instance, Sami Zayn get the championship, I was like, I'm just throwing out names of like people who like LA Knight, like those type of people that's like that person going to win against Gunther? No. That person going to win against Seth Rollins? No. Does it sort of make a bigger deal if they do? Yeah. But if it beats a Jey, then it's like, okay, while I understand that some people are like, it brings the prestige of the title or all this other stuff. I'm like, yeah, but he is a mid card to like mid tier champion to me. That like helps other people also become champions in that same way. Whereas like now it just sort of looks like as a transitional championship. And maybe Jey Uso's story is just going to be he can win the title, he just can't hold it for long. Now I did think they did a good job that even though he didn't really have title defenses like that he was the center of the universe in a way I don't think you didn't really get with Gunther. I think in a way that you sort of did in a brief spell of time you got with like how you sort of did with Cody, where everybody was gunning for the championship. Now, on one hand, you can also say that also like in a way that made Jey strong, and it also made Jey weak because it made him strong because it's like everybody like you got the thing that everybody wants. You the main guy, you the top guy, but also it does sound like they also see him as somebody that you can pick on, where it's like, oh, you got the title? I'm coming for it. Oh, I was like, no matter it's Gunther. Seth, oh, you got the title? You can't handle that. I got the power. I'm going to take the power. You know, I was like, so that's been built in Jey's storyline that he can't handle the responsibility of the championship. Now, the problem is, to me, is where do you really go after this? I don't think that the YEET movement is over in that type of way. Not yet. I don't think the YEET movement will be over. Oh, I was like, unless it just okay. So I was like on Reddit Talk, they was talking about how thoughts or plans for Jey Uso to basically join up with Jimmy and make the Usos relevant again and tag team. And then we also had the thing with Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods of the New Day basically being like, there ain't no tag team out here that can fight us or whatever. And plus we haven't really been sticking to brands as much either, so that makes me think that could be a possibility. That could heat up the base, trying to find a way to heat up the tag team by going back to the well of what used to really sell and go hard now that the Usos are faces and the New Day is heels. Problem with that, I was like, that would be fine, except for what does it go for Jey? Jimmy basically just Jimmy. To me, I was like, to be honest, he kind of sort of been like R-Truth on a serious level of like actually getting a like U.S. title type of championship type of guy. I was like, he's a comic guy, but he can lay it down if he needs to. Jey, on the other hand, the thing is that sometimes where it's like those tag teams, you put them back together, that's it. We seen what happened to Kofi. Like once Kofi sort of got put back in the tag team spot, he's never gone past fighting for a mid-card championship, which I think that sort of sucks in of itself, because I was like, it's not that I was like I need another Kofi championship run or nothing like that, but I'm just like, I feel like you should be able to fight for the main championship. And while we know from a storyline that it's a foregone conclusion that you're not going to win, it shouldn't just automatically feel like that, to where like if Kofi gets in there, it's almost like Shinsuke in there. It's kind of like, oh, this is just nothing, just to progress the story in a way that don't really care about. And you also seen earlier this year that Xavier Woods on his journey to go and get a singles title, once they sort of brought back the tag team, guess what? Nothing else has happened from it. Jimmy, once he gets put in his tag team, that's it. Whatever thoughts that we thought like maybe he might get the U.S. champ, no, I think that's gone. And I think Jey, once he gets in there, I think he'll still be able to get single runs, because he is basically the Jeff Hardy of the situation. But but the thing is like, will it come back around to being the main event type of thing? That's sort of the difficult part. And I was like, that's what I'm afraid of, because I don't think he should be out of the spot. To me, he should be a guy that maybe has like 3 or 4. You know, when it maybe it's all said and done, have that championship, it just might not be long. Like he should be like Edge, where just like, oh, he had the championship, had it for a while, loses it. Not ever really the main guy, even though I think his hype will be over that. But he would have the title right. He would have the title amount of titles compared to the reign. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So I was like, I don't know where he necessarily can go from here and keep the momentum, because I was like, that's to me where the YEET movement would start to me like fizzle out. Is once if he's just stuck in tag team constantly. Yeah, because I was like, if they face on to the New Day, they're gonna win those titles, because everybody's gonna be like, the Usos back together. All this thing is cool. New Day are heel, and I was like, and then they'll probably have their little trilogies of matches or whatever like that, and then we're back to what? We're back to what? See, to me, that's why I didn't like this match being this fast, or it being Gunther. Doesn't really. I was like, I wouldn't have mind. Like I said, I wouldn't have minded if that would have been a little bit later on of being like his final boss or whatever. But the fact that it happened so quickly, I was like, cause Gunther, I was like, I was like, he's world title status. He's stamped up there, just like Seth, not needing the money in the bank necessarily. Gunther doesn't need this automatically or whatever like that. Problem is, what else do you do with him if he doesn't have the title? I think that's a real actual problem. You don't actually know what to do with Gunther with that. Now, if it's over here that he's going to face Goldberg and that whole thing, then I think that this feels basically almost like Kofi Kingston with Brock Lesnar back in the day, where it's like, okay, cool, yeah, maybe his title reign wasn't that great with all the stuff, but him losing to Brock Lesnar like that, then Cain Velasquez comes out, and then they have a match, and then what? That's what this is going to feel like. Gunther versus Goldberg after beating Jey Uso is going to feel like that to me. I was like, where it's just kind of like, all right, cool. Did we really need the title? No, we didn't. But that's the only way that it's going to feel great enough for Goldberg to probably fight. And then also, cool. And I'm like, what does that help with whatever you see? Like, you didn't feel like the title on Jey Uso was holding it high enough. You think that facing Goldberg was going to be any better? That, to me, would be better if it was just without the title. But it holds up, and I was like, Goldberg probably ain't going to do it if the title wasn't really on the line. Yeah, and I was like, to me, I was like, all right, cool. So Gunther's back in charge. And I was like, cool. I don't think him and Seth stuff is Jey and Seth stuff to me had a lot more of a higher ceiling, whereas Gunther and Seth has a higher floor. I was like, to me, I was like, the match is going to be impeccable, but it's not going to be something that's going to be as all as Jey Uso fighting against like all odds. Gunther's going to fight against all odds, but it's going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, so I was like, I thought we were going to get a longer time of Jey Uso having the title for a little bit longer. I thought they could have did more with him and Cena, that crossover as well. Yeah, I just think it's sort of bummy right now of Jey Uso not having it, just because, like I said, if you like, to me, I was like, don't get me wrong, I was like, say for instance, I was like, later on, I was like, we don't know who the champion, the champion's going to eventually be Seth, but, and I think Sammy and Seth is a good story. You do got enough history of Sammy and Gunther of like a second time around, because they're 1-1, and I was like, Sammy had been Gunther's, I was like, to me, kind of like Gunther's to, not in the same way, but Gunther to Jey Uso. So I was like, I think that if they did that, but I don't think they're going to do that. But I do think the story of Jey Uso and Sammy could have been something. It could have been something. You could have had, to me, you could have had that match of like Gunther a little bit down, like a little bit later on beating Jey, but you could have had the match of Sammy versus Jey for the championship, and to me, that you could have had a whole pay-per-view where it's just like, and there's so much meat on that bone. To me, that was like, you could have played off with this. I don't know what they're going to do with Gunther in this aspect. So, Jey, hopefully you get back up there at some point, but it ain't going to be this year. And I was like, and that's sort of the part too, that was like, with some of these champions, it's like, you know that was their only shot because of who else is around. Because I was like, you still got to, I was like, and look, we might not even get any of that. This of like, you know what, you feel like Drew got to get the championship at some point, right? Right? CM Punk, I was like, I think he's going to lose to John Cena, but he's going to have a championship at some point before, whenever he's done. Right? Sure. Yeah. I was like, in the future, I was like, this could happen as soon as this year, depending on how the Seth Rollins story goes out. But if you could think of Braun Breaker getting the title early on to be like the Randy Orton, how people have talked about Evolution, you can see that. I was like, then we start to get a little bit more Wayne on it, because Cody Rhodes is going to get the championship back at some point. Will we see Roman Reigns? I was like, I don't think he'll get a championship, but he's going to be in the vortex of it whenever it is that he pops back up. So at this point, I'm like, this is it. Like, Damian, is he going to get another championship run? Probably not. Jey Uso, is he going to? I feel like it's really bleak. I feel like it's really bleak at this point. I feel like it's like, hey, he got a championship. He did the yeeting. We're done. Keep buying his merch, everybody. Keep on doing it. Anyway, that's just my take on the whole Uso situation. I was like, from Jay's point, nah. Gunther, I was like, he's fine. I think, to be honest, I think he holds the championship until whenever Seth Rollins cashes in. To be honest, and I think that he will. I think he will sort of cash in on Gunther. Surprising. I was like, nah, self integrity of being the heel he is. He probably would say it at a certain spot or whatever and beat Gunther that way. Anyway, how do y'all all feel about Jey Uso losing his championship? To me, I feel like it's Kofimana all over again. Let me know what y'all think. Until then, next time.